NZ Aerosports, Icarus Canopies, now JYRO. That's right, we've rebranded, and JYRO is our next generation. It honours our founder, as that's the name we knew him by, but JYRO also marks the start of a new chapter. And not to be biased, but it's going to be fucking epic. Long story short, we're more us than ever, so if you're new to the sport, or even a Sky God Ninja Turtle, welcome. I think our valiant leader Lucy, JYRO's daughter, says it best.
And we still got that fuck yeah attitude. Rebrand! Woo!
Rebrand woo indeed, Lucy. Anyway, head over to JYRO.com for more info and get amongst you legends.
I was 19, broke, unemployed, and sold my girlfriend's canopy for drug money. So I thought I better sew her a new one. What a sentence, and what a story. This describes the humble yet outrageous beginnings of NZ Aerosports, the home of Icarus Canopies, in the words of our founder himself. From getting a paratrooper toy from his mom, watching parachutes at the DZ as a 6-year-old, jumping off the wharf with a parachute made from bed sheets, doing his first jump at 16, sewing his first canopy on a borrowed machine at 19, and starting to sell parachutes out of a garage in 1986, Paul JYRO Martin had an undying love for the sky. Our company started with one man with the wildest of spirits and a true blue sky dream, a renegade. In the time that JYRO created and ran the Icarus Canopies brand until he passed away in 2017, he pushed everything he had to its limits. We miss him, and we always will. JYRO is the next generation of NZ Aerosports. It honors our founder, of course, because it was the name we all knew him by, but JYRO the rebrand also marks the start of a new chapter, our next jump. JYRO is the space between sound and silence, art and science, chaos and calm. JYRO is a state of epic tranquility that transcends understanding. That moment, in the door, in free fall, mid-swoop, where nothing but the present exists. A perfect balance of euphoria and thrill. JYRO captures our passion for flying and our commitment to designing break-the-fucking-rules canopies that deliver pilots pure, wild flight. Hey gang, so I got a new book out. It's called The Upside of Fear, and it's exactly what you think it's about. It's about the good side of, well, getting scared. In it, we talk not only about the science and biology behind fear, but the psychology as well. And it's not just coming from me, it's coming from some of the best in the sport. Omar Alhigelan, Jeff Provenzano, Maxine Tate, and so many more have contributed their sometimes terrifying stories to the book to help you overcome your fear. So head to the lunaticfringepodcast.com. You're going to find the link to the book there, as well as the other books. It's available in ebook, paperback, hardback, and audiobook right now.
Coming straight from the cockpit, it's another episode of Lunatic Fringe with the fucking pilot.
Ready, set, go! Back in the can for another edition of the Lunatic Fringe podcast and a friendly face. We haven't actually gotten to talk in quite some time, so straight to it. Who the fuck are you, and what do you do?
Well, I'm Julien Peelman. What I do is that I try to design new parachutes for JYRO. So I've been doing that for about 15 years now. First, I was living in New Zealand, and now I do it remotely from France. And yeah, trying to improve the aerodynamics of it, but also the materials, and to try to get better products out there.
I mean, first off, 15 years, that's a long time to be designing parachutes for people to just go jump out of airplanes, man. That's quite an accomplishment in itself. Yeah,
it was my first job actually, and I like it so much that I never changed. I mean, to keep going with it for as long as I can.
It's pretty spectacular that that's like the first gig, and in the first gig, you end up designing some pretty fucking iconic canopies.
Well, your words, thank you.
I like the modesty. I like the modesty. But there's no getting around the fact that some of the stuff that you've designed kind of took center stage in the skydiving world just because of their performance. And it's not to say there's not other amazing canopies out there, but the stuff that you put out there seems to be on the podium an awful lot.
Yeah, I've participated in some cool projects. Never alone though. I worked for many years with JYRO for Paul Martin himself, who taught me a lot. And now I'm working with a really cool team of testers and people who know different aspects, like the in the material, the sewing, the putting everything together.
Mm.
And so yeah, we have a really cool team and
I mean,
we try to do cool things.
I would suppose, and I don't want to get too far afield because I'd like for anybody that hasn't heard the first episode we did, I'd like to backtrack a bit. But I would imagine there's so much more goes into the designing that just coming up with a shape that works. Because you obviously, and I've never even thought about that until you just said it, you have to take into consideration what the cloth can hold in regard to just construction alone, right? Can it hold up to the rigors of being built, let alone can it hold up to the rigors of what we do to it?
Yeah, there are many different aspects, but the part where I'm coming from is really aerodynamics, so the shape of it, and that's what I studied the most. But yeah, then there is the structural aspect of it. Is it gonna hold the load? Is it gonna wear? How it's gonna wear? How long it's gonna last? And then if it's even possible to put this shape together, there's also a whole lot of kind of art and science between the shape we design and the shape it's gonna actually take in flight.
Mm.
So there's big difference there, and we try to anticipate the second one when we design the first one. But yeah, coming from flat pieces of fabric into shape that then is going to inflate, going to be stretched, and so on. So there's this whole aspect as well, and yeah, then the shape needs to work also for really different things. So it needs to deploy well, reliably for a long time. We aim at several thousand jumps now in canopies, and and yeah, and then it needs to be controllable, to fly well on full flight, to flare well, go through turbulence. So yeah, it's a whole different angles to
Yeah,
look at.
yeah, for sure. Well, so to jump back, let's talk about how you got started. First off, how did you get interested in the aerodynamic side of things and into design stuff, and then how did that work its way into the skydiving industry?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, just how you got into working in a field involving aerodynamics in the first place, and then how that led to skydiving.
Well, that's what I studied at school. I have an engineering degree in aeronautics, so I'm specialized in aerodynamics. I mainly learned about aircrafts. Um, so then I applying it to parachutes is slightly different things, but the flow of air works the same way.
Mm,
And I was also a skydiver. And then obviously when you know about the theory of something and when you start being passionate about a sport, you kind of want to see what could be applied, if you could bring some knowledge you've learned from the other fields into the field you love.
sure.
And then I moved to New Zealand for something a bit different, working on say, for the America's Cup. Well, in Department of Research of the University of Auckland that works with the America's Cup team of New Zealand. And after this internship of a few months, I stayed in New Zealand and I yeah, knocked at the door of JYRO, which was the first canopies at the time. And then yeah, I just started to build line sets for them. And in the end, yeah, trying to apply what I knew, started to do some CAD design about um, what a parachute could look like in 3Ds. Well, it was designed in 2D at the time. And then, yeah, it slowly started like that.
So now, what was the original goal when you went to school for aeronautics? What were you planning on doing, or where did you think it was going to take you?
That's a good question. I'm not sure I remember exactly, but I remember skydiving, not necessarily applying or learning about, well, getting a job in the skydiving industry, but just skydiving because I knew this school was paying for AFF, and you could get a few hundred jumps really cheap if you were part of the school. So I think that was a um, big bonus for me. And then I thought, yeah, sure, can probably learn something interesting also along the way and get a job
Sure.
with it. But so yeah, I wanted to skydive before then entering the school. But the dream of making my job and my career was not there at the time.
Okay. Now, so you got into skydiving and then into aeronautics kind of roughly at the same time. Um, but as soon as you were a full-fledged skydiver and then you were in and then through school, at what point were you like looking up at the parachutes, or were you ever looking up at the parachutes that you were jumping going, there's got to be a better way to tweak this or make this better or that better, or was your mind not working that way yet?
Yeah, I guess not yet. Like when you learn skydiving, it's already a lot of things to take on and a lot of things to learn before starting to think you could improve something. So I guess it was a slow process when I started, I went to New Zealand and started working at JYRO, only had 200 jumps. So I was still really in the learning, absorbing phase of things. And I remember thinking when I first got into the job that, well, if at some point I managed to do a small modification that is actually on the product in the air somewhere, I would be so fucking proud of it. And and I yeah didn't even think I could actually design full products and yeah, keep doing this for many more years.
Now, when you started with them, you were building line sets and stuff like that, and obviously this was kind of a gradual thing. In school, were you also learning the design aspects of aeronautics? Like you were learning how to use CAD systems and stuff like that, or did you learn it after the fact when you started working with canopies?
Yeah, the engineering school was quite generalist, so we did learn about everything from electricity, electronics, doing some CAD, manufacturing techniques as well. Um, so yeah, it was a whole thing. So I learned a lot of things. Wasn't specifically good at any, probably at the time. And so, but I knew how to use some CAD softwares, and I started from there. When I started working with JYRO, I was like, hey, I have this software. I kind of know how to use it. Let's see if I can design a parachute in it. And
So it literally was just a yeah, that would be like me saying, yeah, I kind of know how to use Photoshop. I'm going to try and design this massive ad campaign.
yes, but I didn't think straight away about the massive ad campaigns. You know, I was like, if I can start designing something that looks like a parachute in the CAD software, it's gonna be cool. Maybe I can use this shape to run it into a CFD, some computational simulation, and but with no expectation about this design to be used or anything. It was just like, trying to play around.
Sure. Now, and this is maybe a little bit more on the technical side, but so when you design a wing, when I think wing, I think a fully inflated flying parachute, that you're designing that airfoil to create the lift or drag the way you want, where you want. But then you have to wrap your head around how those things open as well, which is a whole different side to the aerodynamics of a parachute. And like anybody that's jumped for any length of time knows, how a parachute opens is make or break, right? I mean, it's if it opens like shit, I don't care how good it flies if it rips my head off every time I pitch a pilot chute. So how did that come in? Because I still, after 29 years, can't wrap my head around the aerodynamics behind an opening parachute.
Yeah, well, it's a big question. It's certainly a big difference between the paragliding industry and our industry. The wings are similar, but have big differences because of the deployment, the opening. And it also comes into play in the way we work because like the flights can be simulated in the computer. We can learn how this canopy is going to fly and so on, but the deployment is not at the moment something we can simulate. So it's a part of the development where there's a lot of trial and error or art or experience as well. How the size of the slider, how we decide on the size of the slider, how the slider is trimmed during the deployment, how much brakes we want. Unfortunately, when we start a project, we don't have these answers. Like we don't have a spreadsheet that's going to tell us that for this canopy is going to be like this. So we do our best to be as close as possible based on what we know from the previous product or the existing. And then we try it and we look at videos in slow motions for days to try to understand why the brakes went this way, why it started to inflate on the side and not in the center, and so on. And
Sure.
we need a slider that's a bit wider so that the inlets are a bit more open, and so on. So there are a few parameters. We don't have the right formula at the moment, and that's what we test a lot actually. The flight on the first few test jumps, we're like, okay, this canopy is flying how we want it. It's good. And then the 90 other percent of all the test jumps, it's about deployment.
Sure, I would think. Now, I'm going to ask what could be a really stupid question, but for all the people out there packing parachutes that have their own little tweaks that they do when they pack and their own little, oh, guaranteed good opening pack jobs, and I know how to do this over this for this canopy and that canopy. Does all the little shit we do for our pack jobs make a damn bit of difference?
It seems it does. Like when you see some people have consistent good openings and some other have consistently shitty openings, it must make a difference. But it's hard to believe when we look at a video of the parachute opening, like the fabric is shaking all over the place, the lines are wrapping themselves around, and everything moves so much that you think like, okay, I put my stabilizer a bit more like this. I put the slider a bit more in front. I roll a bit more the tail or whatever. It's hard to believe that it can make a difference in this huge mess that happens at 200 kilometers an hour in the wind. So I don't know.
I mean, I suppose at the end of the day, if when you're on the packing mat, shoving your canopy into the bag, if you feel better about it because you did this or that, because I'm the same way. I've got my little voodoo shit that I do every time I pack a canopy for myself, and so I like to think that it works, but then there's the logical part of me that's like, no, it fucking doesn't. Like, no, it doesn't.
What we certainly try to do is that it doesn't matter too much. We try to make the brush open whatever little difference you make. So we make sure that the prototypes are packed by different people in different conditions and so on, so that it doesn't work only with our test jumper that pack a certain way.
Okay,
And
I was
so
actually
that
just going to ask if you had like a set packing formula, or if you it was just get it in there the best way that you think.
Yeah, well, the normal method of packing, but then we don't check how the beta testers, which are the people who are doing a lot of jumps between the in-house testing and the release of the product. These people, we don't check closely how they pack unless they have an issue.
Hmm.
But if they don't have an issue, we don't want to know how they pack because we want this product to work for anybody out there. So um, if it's even better if one is packing it this way and another one is packing it this way, then we probably cover a wider range of people and
Sure.
conditions.
Now, considering so much of the research goes into how a canopy deploys, are you guys ever like intentionally packing horribly or intentionally packing what should be potentially a malfunction just to see how newer canopies are going to react?
We don't do this routinely, no. But I think for the Kraken, which is a wingsuit canopy, so we're trying to get this shape of the canopy in the lines so that it would untwist itself. So that, when you have wingsuit, you have your arms stuck in the wingsuit for a few more seconds, and it's hard to untwist. And so we were trying to get this, and I think I remember for this one we did pack with few twists and so on. But we don't do this routinely. No, we more account on the high volume of jumps to try to cover most of what can happen.
Yeah, I would think with something like the Kraken, when, I mean, the majority of them are being used in a single canopy rig, the opening is incredibly important.
Yeah, well, no, the Kraken is not a base jump canopy. It's
It's strictly
for,
wingsuit.
yeah, it's wingsuit from aircraft, so it's not a single wing, but it's still really important. Like, things can go to shit pretty quickly, and when you have your arms stuck and your legs and you start spinning with twists, and you have to cut away and so on. So yeah, it's still really important.
Well, hell, half the cutaway videos that I see that pop up on my feed are usually on wingsuits, and it's just line twists.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Well,
But
and I've also noticed that the size of the canopies that some wingsuit guys are flying keep getting smaller, whereas for the longest time, if you were on a wingsuit, you were on quite a big canopy, and now I see guys flying some pretty sporty canopy sizes.
well, I think this is something true in our sport, is that as much as we try to increase the safety margin, get better products, more reliable products, people will use it to push the boundaries more.
Yep.
So we do, like the Kraken, for example, has really nice opening and twist itself and so on. And so then people get confident and use it to get smaller sizes.
Of course.
And it's fun, more fun.
So, you had said earlier that you guys go back and forth between designing new wings and using different materials and stuff. Are there any new materials out on the horizon that are gonna continue to change? Because I know that you had said the parasailing and skydiving canopies are similar-ish. But do you see them coming closer together? Because I know that the materials used for paragliding are different than they are for skydiving.
Well, we're already using some materials that are inspired or coming from the paragliding industry on our competition wing. So the fabric, instead of being coated only with silicone, which is the ZB we know, it's also coated with a mix of polyurethane, which gives less stretch to the fabric. And this is directly coming from paragliders. So on materials, already there are already bridges between the two. In terms of shapes, we've seen with the speed wings, speed riding or speed flying wings, and our competition wings, like CP, we've seen them coming closer and closer together. There's still a bit of a gap, especially in the airfoil. Like the speed wings are still trimmed. Well, for the one that use more paraglider airfoil, they're still trimmed quite flat. So if you want to dive, do a long turn, then they still recover quite abruptly compared to our wings. And our wings have a wider range of speed. They can accelerate higher and then go slower while being stable in bad conditions, on worse condition than the speed wings. So there's still a gap that, yeah, I think I see many people on both sides trying to explore how to get closer, because there are advantages on both sides, and we try to get the agility and the glide from the speed wings, when the people on the other side try to get the stability and the speed range of our wings. And yeah, I think it's gonna happen. in the next few
I
years.
mean, I watch different videos, and I remember I saw a video not that long ago of, I think it was a Speedwing coming in, doing a targeted landing on a raft in the water, but of course he does a barrel roll right before he comfortably recovers and then softly touches down on that. And then I see another video of a skydiving canopy doing a similar move, although a slightly more aggressive plop into the water. But I mean, that was the stuff of fucking daydreams not that long ago, and here they're doing it. So it's pretty insane, the agility on both sides of the spectrum, I would think.
Yeah, and I think the difference is not um, that big. Like if, for example, in CP, so on the parachute side of things, they would remove the rules of staying close to the ground for I think 50 meters or so on, or something like this. If they would remove this rule, Speedwings would probably win the competition. So it's just one line in the rules. And then if this is removed, we would change the way we design canopies, because we could have this shorter recovery arc, but then a better glide. And so yeah, it's only holding to few little things like that.
Sure.
And the openings, of course, like all the new Speedwings, they have this pulley system, which the brakes are not only pulling on the tail, on the trailing edge of the canopy anymore. They're pulling on the whole. They're changing the trim of the whole wing, which is super efficient, super cool. But if we had to jump with this many pulley system and so on, we
Right.
would probably have so many malfunctions.
Right.
So yeah, it's a few differences.
It's kind of amazing, really. I mean, and you'll have to excuse me. I'm just working on my camera here as we're talking, but I'm still here. Um, as the two get closer together, I wonder what the relatively immediate future holds, because it seems so spectacular that either of the canopies these days can do what they're doing. And if they blend, holy shit, I can't even imagine if those two worlds come together. If you can have some of the agility and performance of a paraglider or speedwing and a canopy that you're jumping out of a plane, holy shit. I mean,
Yeah, it can be really fun wings. For myself as a designer, at some point, it's also about defining what we're looking for. If you are ready to get like shitty deployments with high malfunction rates to benefit from a more fun to fly or agile canopy and so on, we can go this way. And but then it's about defining the limit of our sports as well. Um, what are we doing really? Does it still make sense to go into a plane to jump, have a shitty deployment, or are we just reinventing paragliding and should we just start from a mountain instead? Or there's all these questions about where's the end of our sports. It happens a lot, like in wingsuiting, they're wondering if they put rigid parts in the wingsuits. You know, like at what point are we changing this wingsuit into a glider?
yeah, yeah.
Or hang glider or something like this. So it's really interesting, like what makes the sport our sport and what we like about it and what we want to preserve, and also what we want to extend, what we want to explore, and some limitations that are coming from nowhere and we want to break and expand our sports. So
Sure.
um,
I mean,
I don't
it's
have the answers to these questions, but
and there's a lot of blending of the different sports in aviation. But I mean, yeah, you mentioned the wingsuits, and again, watching videos and watching guys basically cutting the grass and then flaring off of what appears to be the ground high enough for a normal deployment and then come into land, and you're like, just what the fuck did I just see? It's it's insane. And I know that a couple of wingsuits have been landed, but I mean, with some of the stuff I've seen, you strap a skateboard to that guy's chest in a long enough road and he's fine. Like it's wild.
yeah, it's Italy, and well, then they won't need parachutes anymore. So I don't
Yeah.
know if that's a good thing.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about that. Well, now, and obviously, the one of the big things that you guys as designers have to keep in mind is safety and reliability and longevity of the gear, because you had said you guys are designing canopies that you want to last for a couple thousand jumps. which, as consumers and parachute flyers all around want their gear to last quite a while. And a big part of that, though, is how they maintain it, how they take care of it, and obviously what's put into it. And you guys are working hard to continue to try and up the safety and up the reliability. And the latest thing that you guys have got going on is with the line sets, yes?
Yeah, well, that was a big topic last year, 2024. There was quite a few incidents with line breaking, and the problem that, well, the new problem is that these lines were breaking on landing. So we have seen a few incidents with many parachutes from other brands, and when we saw that, we're like, okay, well, are we doing something really different here, or do we have the same issue, or do we potentially have the same issue and it's just been lucky so far? So we started to explore these questions a bit deeper, and we actually started by doing a survey with our athletes and then a lot of our customers to try to understand a bit better when they were changing their lines and why, what they were looking at, if they knew when to change the lines or if they had no idea. And we try to gather data like this, and also if they had incidents. So the initial point, the starting point for us was like, do we have an issue as well or not? And it showed us a lot of interesting things. It showed that we didn't have as big of an issue as some other brands, but there were still a few incidents being recorded. And so, yeah, we decided to explore that much deeper.
I mean, that's got to be kind of tough to gather the data on, right? Because I mean, there's such a variety of the way that people take care of their gear out in the real world. And you've got some people that are incredibly meticulous and check after each jump if they can. And then there's guys like me that I kind of think I was in the middle. I'd run my hands up the lines as I was going out, but relying more on feel and a quick glance. And then you've got the guys that probably haven't looked at their line since the day their canopy was hooked up. So how the hell do you gather information from that wide variety of people and come up with a game plan? That's got to be crazy.
Well, that's what we get. We got lucky is that a lot of people replied to the survey. So we got 250 answers. So you can start to do statistics, like proper statistics. You don't rely on a couple of people telling you one thing and then probably more telling you another things. You can obviously work average on what they do, and you can look at different trends. So we've seen, for example, that people using an RDS tend to change their lines about 15% earlier than the others. And yeah, this, if you ask just one person with an RDS and one without, you cannot get anything. But here you can see a clear trend between the two groups of people. We also seen that the exit weight plays a big role. It's kind of obvious once you hear it, but yeah, the lines are loaded by the weight of the pilot, and the heavier the pilot, the more wear, but also independently from the wear, it defines when the lines are going to break. So we can see a clear trend that people with lighter people will change their lines much later than some others. And so yeah, we kept digging like this in trends and built a few graphs about quite a few things. And yeah, we realized quite the data got more and more interesting the more we looked at it. And some things that are really appear obvious to me now that I've seen them for a year, were not at all even for me like a year ago. For example, I was talking to Cedric, kind of pilot, Cedric Vega Rios. He's jumping Vectron 300, and he's 120 kilos.
Wow.
So it's quite an extreme case, but really interesting because he was telling me I actually changed my lines before seeing any visual wear. And suddenly it got me thinking, shit, but we keep asking people to check their lines visually. And actually here in this extreme case, it doesn't bring you any information. The lines are breaking before you could see anything.
Wow.
So Cedric is only relying on his experience and the number of jumps. He changes his line every 90 jumps. For
Wow.
competition. Because he knows that once he pushed it at 100 jumps, and it broke.
Yeah, and I mean the catastrophic effects of a broken line at the wrong time are not to be, underplayed.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's a bit the new thing. And this is why we see more and more incidents. Like, I think lines breaking because they're too old is not a new thing at all. But what we see is that there are more and more people jumping with small canopies, thin lines like the Leia, the Valkyrie, mainly. It's a huge amount of canopies out there, and they're used every day. Some cameramen or team training, they do 10, 15 jumps a day, all week in some drop zones. And this is new. That wasn't the case before. These kind of lines were only on competition rings, that people were jumping only a few jumps here and there. And so you have this. You have the fact that the openings are getting softer and softer. And that's a good thing. But the deployment used to break the lines. And when it breaks during opening, it's not such a big deal. You cut away, and in most cases, it's a non-event. But the landings are getting faster and faster with faster turn, which means high G-force. And we start seeing in the data that the G-force during landing is getting higher than the G-force during deployment. So now you can get lines that go through the deployments just fine, and then you put them under 3Gs in your turn, and then they break. At the moment, you really need them not to break. So I think people before were not even recording the line breaking at openings. We didn't get any data on that, but now when it happens on landing, obviously the consequences are dramatic. So now we need to pay more attention.
Sure.
What
Now,
we're
what's
doing.
the program that JYRO is launching specifically in regard to all of this?
Well, what we're trying to do is, so we have looked at the lines, and it appears that the A1 line, which are the center front ones, they accumulate a lot of problems because they have high wear during the openings because they are the most inside lines, and so the grommets of the slider are wearing them a lot. And then there are the highly loaded ones during deployment because the center cell starts to open, and this is where all the load deceleration is happening. So you put 3Gs or 4Gs during opening on mainly your center lines. And then during landing or full flight, the front lines are the ones that are the most loaded. And to this, I want to add that now with highly tapered canopy, so highly elliptical, some say like the Leia and so on, the load is also more focused on the center of the canopy. So you see that all the factors are pointing at the center front lines that accumulates high wear, high load, and high load during landing. So we focused on this one, and we decided to make them thicker on all our Vectran 300 and Vectran 400 line sets. We call it fail smart because the idea is not to prevent any failure, but what we want to do is that when it breaks, if it breaks, it doesn't break on these front lines. And so what's going to happen is that the next weakest link in the design is probably the C one, so the center rear lines. And this one, they usually break during deployments. So we want to bring this. We don't want people to keep pushing the line set until they break. This is still not a thing. But at least if someone does, we want to make sure that the lines break. So probably the C1 are going to break during opening. And then it's going to look up and say, oh shit, mine is broken, cut away, and that's it. And we made the A1 thicker so they last longer and so they can bear heavier loads, and so that they are not the one to break.
Sure.
So all our thinner lines, Vectran 300 and Vectran 400s, now have the A1 that are one size up, and we hope that will prevent useless accidents.
How much more use do you think you'll get out of a line set with changes like this?
Not more. Actually, the
Just
whole
safer.
point is, the whole point is not to make the line set last specifically longer. We're also working on this on the side, but it's a really different topic. Are we looking at new coatings? We're trying to do thicker lines on layer without having tension knots. But so we're working on this, but this is a really different topic. What we wanted to do here is not to make the line set last longer, but that to prevent really specific accidents and prevent dramatic consequences when people are not doing their maintenance correctly.
Sure. Well, a couple of points and questions. You had said obviously the idea is to get it so that it's moving back to the center C lines to break on opening, because it's much less catastrophic to have something break on opening. I did like the fact that you said people would look up, see a broken line, and cut away. Because I know a lot of people, myself included, that are not that smart and have landed with multiple broken lines before. That being said, it was a different time and I wasn't flying something that was pulling 3Gs on landing. So that's changed. But with all of this, when talking to people or when looking at your statistics and stuff, have you taken into consideration like where people are jumping, the desert as opposed to grass fields and all that stuff? And what recommendation would you give to people as they're keeping an eye on their line sets, depending on where they're at and the type of jumping that they're doing that they need to be doing, especially with the one gentleman that you said that doesn't rely at all on the visual inspections? But for those who are visually inspecting, what should you be looking for? And if you're in a desert area as opposed to a grass landing, what should you be looking for?
So quite a few questions in one, but I think so there are two different things. There's how the line wear and why it breaks. So how the line wear, it's mainly the load cycle, so putting 3Gs for a few seconds every time on it, and abrasion from the bonnet. Abrasion is 80% and the load cycle is about 20%. And that's how we estimate it at the moment. On the wear, so the abrasion, it reduces the strength of the line. Sorry, both combined, reduces the strength of the line by about 1 pound per jump. So
wow.
If you have Vectran 400, it means that each line can hold 400 pounds. That's what 400 stands for. And so we estimate that it loses about 1 pound per jump.
Wow.
More or less, but it just gives an idea. So if you do 400 jumps on it, the strength of the line is 0. Right?
Oh, wow.
But obviously, it breaks way before it's 0 because you don't load it at a 0. You load it at your weight times 3Gs during landing and during deployment. So there's the wear on one side, and then the why it breaks is your weight and the way you handle the canopy. So if you do hop and pops, your deployments are pretty soft. You're not going to reach 3Gs. If you don't do high performance landing, you probably not go much higher than 1.5G on landing. And then if you're heavy or not, these factors are going to define when it breaks. So you have on one side the wear, you lose 1 pound of strength per jump, and then on the other side, how much you loaded, which is going to define when it breaks. And so the formula I'm trying to push a little bit since the PIA have this here is that to estimate the number of jumps you could do on a line set, you take the strengths, so the line type, between 400, 300, 550, and so on. And you subtract your weight in pounds. So, for example, for me, Vectron 550 on my Crossfire, I weigh, I think in pounds, 170 something pounds, pretty light. I can do 550 minus 170, and it gives me 380 jumps or something like this.
Okay.
It's an average, but it gives you an idea. So I buy this line set. This is more or less what I can expect. It can be minus 30%, plus 30%, depending on how I take care of my lines. So if I jump in RDS, it goes faster. If I jump in dusty conditions, it goes faster. If my barometrics are damaged, it can go much faster than this. But if on the other hand, if I land on grass, I never leave my lines on UV, I don't use an RDS, etc., I can probably go more than 250 jumps. So, rule of thumb, strength of the lines minus your weight in pounds gives you an idea of how many jumps you could expect. And then from there, don't wait to reach this number of jumps to start checking the lines, obviously.
Sure.
And so the other thing you should know is that if you're a super heavy pilot, if you start to see some wear, you need to start worrying earlier than someone who's light, because you're going to put a lot more load on this lines. To the extreme point we were talking earlier of Cedric, who has to change it without seeing me. On the other hand, myself, I can probably wait that to see my lines being really shitty before changing them.
Sure. So I mean, with the average canopy, if you go from new to a couple thousand jumps, you can reasonably expect to change your lines 5 to 8 times, depending on how much you're loading it and how much you're beating up your gear.
Yeah, with the Crossfire or something intermediate like this. Yes, if you go with the layer, thinner lines, you should probably you can probably get a few more line sets on the canopy.
Sure.
And Petra is a bit different because the fabric is a bit different. It doesn't last as long, so you have to replace it a little bit earlier than that.
Sure.
But, yeah.
Now, obviously that's all stuff that people need to be taking into consideration, but you guys have so much more that you're trying to not only deal with what we've got now, but what comes next as well. Like, is there research into replacing the grommets with something that has less friction? I mean, I know that there's all kinds of crazy low friction materials out there. Is that the kind of stuff you're looking towards again for extending line life and stuff like that?
Would like to. To be honest, I haven't looked at the grommet that much. But if you know things, I don't know. I want to know. I want to hear about these low friction materials.
Well, I know just like a lot of the materials that they use for non-stick this and non-greasy that and stuff that's super low friction. I didn't know if something like that existed to potentially coating the grommets in something that's going to have lower friction or not. But again, way out of my wheelhouse.
We have tried a few things in the past. It was not really for the friction, but to make the wings lighter, especially on RDS. We've tried to change from stainless steel to aluminum, and to with some coating or some treatment that would make it hard enough. It was not successful at all. And so I assume it will be the same with the material you described Like they have some coating at the surface, but maybe for the first few jumps, it would lower the abrasion. But then once this coating is damaged, then it would be worse than ever. So right now we don't have any lead to explore on
Sure.
that. But if something comes up,
Fair enough.
we'll be testing it.
So speaking of leads to explore, are there any hints of exciting canopies on the horizon? Anything we should be looking forward to?
Yeah, actually, well, we have had a really cool pace of releasing products lately. I don't know if you followed, but we've released a new student canopy called the Air.
Yeah.
We have released a new lowball canopy called the Helium. We are now working on really, really final stages of a new Sapphire, hopefully being released in the next few months. And after that, we still have a few projects open. Really hope to finish this long project that is the Anna, high
I've
performance canopy.
I was
Yeah,
gonna say I've heard the mysterious Anna name has been batted around for some time now.
yeah. So much that we have thought about calling the Anna 2, so that people think that they missed the one. And but yeah, no, it has been going on for years. Obviously, there was COVID with some. Yeah, it was really hard to make open well. We have a product that we really love now. It opens really great, flies amazing, and somehow we have some of the prototypes we're making that are turning. They're built-in turn, and we're trying to figure out why the construction of the canopy is a bit different from what we usually do. So we're working a lot right now on this, and I honestly cannot say when we're going to find the solution or not. But yeah, really frustrating because the product is really cool. Everybody who's flying the canopy is really loving it, but we cannot release a product until we know that we can manufacture it really
Yeah, of
reliably.
course, of course.
So yeah, a bit more patience, but and then we're gonna have a big party when this one is coming
Oh,
out.
I bet the Anna coming out party for sure.
Yeah.
So hey, fill everybody in on how they can find out more about the updated line sets that you guys have got going, about canopies, about purchases and all that stuff, and then just find out more about you now that you're in France, not in New Zealand. So how do people track down JYRO and how do people find out about everything?
Well, first one obviously is our website, so JYRO.com. JYRO is a J, and you will find information. We have a section called the Help Center where we post a lot of knowledge. We have a blog as well where there was an article about line wear really recently. So you can explore our website a little bit, subscribe to the newsletter as well. I did a seminar on the line wear and line breakings that is online on our YouTube channel. So if you go to our YouTube, you'll find the channel really easily, and you can find it on the last video if you want to learn more. So yeah, about the line set itself, the Fail Smart line set is pretty easy because all the line set that are gonna come out of the factory that are fairly thin lines like 300 and 400 are gonna have this modification by default. There's no option to not have this modification, so you don't have to ask for it. You don't have to change your current line set neither. Just wait that your line set is done, and the next one you order is gonna happen now. So yeah, so this is pretty easy. No action on your side.
Well, I mean, I think it's fantastic that you guys are trying to not just come up with the newest and best and most exciting canopy, but you're trying to keep what's out there safer and safer, and reduce incidents and increase awareness for what people need to do. I've actually watched the seminar that you did, and I highly recommend people tune in to check it out, and anything else that comes out, especially in regard to safety. I mean, we all want to grow up to be very old skydivers still getting to jump out of airplanes, and it's people like you guys making sure that we can do that makes it happen.
Well, we most of the staff at JYRO in the office skydivers, so it's pretty obvious for us to try to make the sport safer. We're all part of it, and yeah, we want to see more parties and more boogies and more cool jumps and less incidents.
Oh, yes.
Things,
Well, Julien, I'll tell you what, I can't thank you enough for your time sitting down and talking today, and for all the hard work that's gone into everything on your first fucking job, for Christ's sakes. I mean, that's pretty amazing what you've done for your first job.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll take care, and we'll look forward to what comes next.
Thank you.
See ya. Well, there you have it. Another episode of the Lunatic Fringe podcast, brought to you as always by, well, wait, not as always, actually. Brought to you now by JYRO. Formerly known as NZ Aerosports, you'll head to JYRO.com for their next level line of canopies. By Pussfoot, the Extreme Sports Collective. Head over to pussfoot.com to check it out. By Summit Parachute Systems, check out summitparachutesystems.com to talk to Jarrett Martin and the gang about kick-ass pilot rigs, rigging courses, and more. By Flyaway Indoor Skydiving, go to flyawaytn.com and check out all the cutting-edge stuff to come. By Pure Spectrum CBD, head to purespectrumcbd.com to check out their wide range of CBD products. And as for us, head to the lunaticfringepodcast.com to listen to any of the hundreds of episodes currently available, hit the link for our YouTube channel, pick up your copy of the Lunatic Fringe book or The Accidental Stripper, and get a sneak peek at upcoming guests. Once again, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.